Hello and welcome to the Mindful Man Project. This is where we discuss all the issues and pieces of the puzzle that is mental health. We look at the things in life that get people down or create anxiety in their life and hopefully give some guidance on how to become a modern mindful man or woman. I am your host, Tyson Venables. Welcome to the podcast. For those listeners at home, I have Luke Balcke. He is an astrologer living out of Melbourne. He's a single dad not so long ago, been through his own journey, his own awakening, as you could say. And we're just going to dive in a little bit here and see what makes Luke tick, and also probably go for a little bit of a dive into a little bit more esoteric world. So strap yourself in and let's go.
You.
Welcome, mate.
Buddy.
So we've just been talking about, just off air, about Luke living in Melbourne and the things and stuff that have been happening down there. Luke, you touched on how you're a dad with the kids coming over there, and obviously you're sharing time and stuff with the kids. How's this, like, that's one thing that I've been really wondering on, especially the Mindful Man Project, with having dads and parents on the podcast. How are you guys getting around this thing, especially being a single dad, having kids come over and then doing the changeover and all that sort of stuff? It's affecting you guys?
Yeah. So firstly, I've my partner Heidi. So yeah, technically I'm a single dad, but like Heidi and I are together. So it's not all sort of one way. And with regards to the kids, not insulating them from what's going on. I think it's because kids are smart and they're perceptive and they see and they know they can sort of see. At their mothers, I presume, they watch the TV and the news and they know what's going on, and they can see in the public, like, and you can't go to the park and you can't go to the skate park and we can't go to those things you like to do anymore. And when they go into public, they see us putting a mask on and all that. So not being very conscious of not insulating them from that, but also being just lighthearted when it comes to that, and almost coming from that angle of like, isn't this silly? Isn't this funny? And, this isn't what's going on, but this is what happens when you allow people in power to control, So, and just keeping it lighthearted for them. I do a lot of distraction. Like, I'm not doing a lot of homeschooling with them. I don't have them frequently on the days that they're supposed to be at school, but even when I do practical life skills, so we will tinker in the shed or go for a massive bike ride, or we just go and kick the footy and hang out, and spending good time with them, but not necessarily pressuring them to like, you've got to do your schoolwork and like taking all that too seriously, because they're only in grade 1, 3 and 5. So I look back to my time in grade 1, 3 and 5, and we don't need to take it too seriously.
The schooling is not like, you're still just learning. You're still finding yourself as a little human, and I think that's a great thing that, especially even myself and Emma, we've been discussing how to bring up a baby in this world, and I think like you're hitting the nail. Like, especially what we've been talking about. It's been an anxious part of our last couple of months, is like, what the hell are we going to do with a baby coming into this world? But yeah, like teaching the kids life skills and showing them what life's about outside of the curriculum. If you want to go down that road, we can go down that road as well. So it's like, it's like I know myself when I was at school, like I excelled at school, but they're all subjects that at the end of the day I didn't really need to use. They've helped me at this time because it's actually allowed me to hold my weight in some discussions I've had, because a lot of people don't understand. I for myself, like, I was what I've actually done. So people want to come into that thing, but it's like circling back to the kids. The kids, obviously they're the future of, and if you go into that scarcity mode and it's rightful that people are getting anxious and scared about what is happening, especially if they're buying into everything that they're digesting. And being able to, as a parent, like you said, just give them the real stuff, keep them real, and they're going to like continue to prosper without having to undo all this intergenerational trauma that we keep hearing about.
Yeah, that's it. There's enough. They observe enough. They absorb enough anyway. So it's just, not not trying to make out that it is any different than what it is, but also they sort of kids don't learn from what you tell them. They learn from like their experience and how you are.
Mm.
So I guess being around me, I don't really take any of this seriously at all. I certainly don't buy into the fear of it. I will respectfully cover my face just out of respect to the people that are in that state of fear, but not from a place of like, oh, come on, you have kids, like this is serious and we have to cover up our faces and things like that.
Mm.
So they get that perspective. And their mum's sort of similar in that respect, although she's probably watches a bit more TV than I do. And yeah, like I haven't seen any adverse effects with them at all. They are missing their friends and their social aspect of school.
Mm.
Not being able to go to their friend's house after school and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just keeping them busy, and like it's good because you get to spend more quality time with them. And I'm spending a lot more one-on-one time with them and kicking the footy and riding the bike. And albeit they're like, oh, we're going for another ride. I'm like, yeah, don't you love going for a ride? We always go for a ride, Dad. I'm like, yeah, I wish my dad would have gone for some more rides with me.
Exactly. Like that's the thing. I think that's one of the things that, especially even when we were living down in Melbourne that first time around in the first lockdown, the first couple of weeks you walked out or most of the time in that first lockdown, you'd walk out into the park and there's dads playing cricket, they're riding around with their kids, and you never saw that. And I think that's been a beautiful byproduct of lockdown is once you kind of get over I guess it's easy for me speaking, being a parent, but it's like once you kind of get over that kind of like the head fuck of like, fuck, I've got my kids at home, like, and you actually realize it's a really great time to actually connect back with these beings that you actually brought into the world and actually allow them into your world and get to know a bit of their world. It's actually a really priceless time in history for you as a family, because then you can actually really enjoy what is happening. It's kind of, and I was talking to another dad the other on Instagram the other day, and he said it's really just kind of made him realize that this is the times that he was really taking advantage of. Like he was going to work and going out for dinners and stuff with all his friends, but now he's now having to spend time with his family, and he's loving it.
Yeah, man, we're having a collective realignment to our values, and we have been putting our attention and energy and focus and vital force into things that at the end of the day don't fucking matter. We're just on the hamster wheel a lot of the time, just doing what we're doing, and we get busy being busy, and we forget to stop and smell the roses. So there's always a silver lining, and there's always opportunity in any circumstances, and to be able to see the opportunity now, which is, yeah, we get to spend more time together, and we get to spend more quality time together, and not being like upset and sad at like everything that's going on in the outer realm. It's like, okay, well, what can I control? I can control my being state in this moment, and I can control how much time I give to my kids and the focus I give them and what we do. And like you said, I've seen way more. I mean, now that we've gone to the stage 4, it has dropped off quite a bit, because I think people are a bit like, I don't
know how to be outside.
Yeah, but up until that point, like, man, the parks, I've never seen the parks that busy around here. There's about 3 or 4 parks close by, and they're just packed with mums and dads and kids and footballs and bikes and all sorts of things. And it's like, you know what? And even walking along the beach and the Esplanade, way more people than you normally see. And I just like you, I'm like, you know what? This is the byproduct of what's going on, and it is our ability to realign to those things in our life that are where our values lie. What's the point of climbing the corporate ladder and working your butt off? You've got to stop sometimes and go, what am I doing this for? To create family and to create a nice home environment and to create security. And it's like, well, we miss the opportunity. Like, we're busy flat out all the time when we're climbing that corporate ladder, and then next thing we turn around and we're at our son's 18th birthday, and we're like, wow, how did that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I completely agree, and it's like it's really shown, I think, a lot of people who have been doing that, and they've realized, oh shit, like there's there's this all this time's just really passed me by, and I've got a 12-year-old kid, and I don't actually even know how to talk to that person. And it's been, I honestly think it's been a great um, magnifier, and also to show people like this, like, yeah, the simple things are the best things in life. And that's really what drew us up here, is like the simple places, like the simple things, like the places where we actually really want to be, like the places you go for where people go for holiday. Like normally we'd come up here for a holiday, so why not live in a place where you go for holiday? You know, it's like if you have to take a holiday from the place you live in because you're in the rat race, then like you're not living. You're not in a state of, like you touched on, you're not in a state of being. You're in a state of doing. And we're human beings. We're not supposed to be human doings.
That's it.
And if we're not, if we're not regularly checking in with that, and seated in that being, like you've done the 1GM meditation and stuff with Dan, I believe, yeah. And so you're across it, and like once you start to really realize that when you're sitting in that state of being, everything else like just kind of shifts out, and it doesn't affect you. You're not reacting to those situations, and especially coming into these times now where it's really quite easy to get really quite upset and really quite infuriated, and
we end up in victimhood.
Yeah.
We become a victim of our reality instead of the creator of it. We're a victim of it, and when we get into that place, we get insecure and in a state of instability. And it's easy then to point the finger out and then become very disempowered by what's going on.
Yeah.
And when we're in a state of disempowerment, we're going to look to an external source of authority or control to feel secure and feel empowered.
Yeah.
And it's a false construct, because ultimately you are responsible for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's like where we've gone. So like, and that's where we're come to in society these days, is that we look for everything outside for our information. We look for somebody to tell us what the weather's going to be like. We look for somebody to tell us what's been happening in our own community. We look for someone to look who's telling us how like what old people are doing, and we just get that information, and that's what we take for gospel. And rather than doing that own cross-checking and then obviously sitting with your intuition and knowing whether it's right or wrong, and actually talking to people in your own community and go, how are you doing? Yeah, I feel pretty good, like I feel great. Like, or you could sit on your phone and go realize, oh fuck, there's 700 people who have been sick in my community. But like, just if you're getting out and you're putting that phone down and you're putting those devices, turning those devices off, and you're actually using your intuition and talking to people and connecting, I think that's where we've really kind of lost touch with like humans. Like as humans, we've became so disconnected, and we just want to have everything given to us.
Yeah, man.
So
that's the danger of like a technocratic society. When we become so reliant on technology, this is the cost that it comes at. We lose the ability to socially interact in our community and with each other. And you're going to have a whole generation of people, that younger people that are grown up that don't know, they're socially awkward and inept because they haven't. There's no communication. There's no socialing outside of technology. And even now, I mean, like it has its benefits, and certainly now with the state of the reality that we find ourselves in, we have to utilize technology, and obviously it gives us the ability to do things like this. But it's just, I see a slippery slope where we just become dependent on it, and that lose that connection to ourself, because ultimately this is where the answers always lie. And then our ability to relate and be social humans, which is, that's what we are. We're social creatures. We rely on our social interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, it's a slippery slope, and it's a slippery slope in like multiple different ways, like mental health and stuff like that. When you become so disconnected, it's that slippery slope down into despair and depression and anxiety and stuff like that. Because once you lose that connection with yourself, but then also the outside world, there's that disconnect from everything. And then eventually, like I know myself, like you've been on a little bit of a journey yourself with your what you call your awakening, and we'll go into that in a second. But it's like, yeah, you once you go on that journey and you realize, oh shit, like I've completely hit the bottom of the barrel here. You realize that once you come up out of it, there's no going back. You got to keep going forward because like you've hit the bottom of the barrel. And yeah, I'm interested. Like you talk about, I've heard you talk about your awakening and stuff before. What was that? What was that time in your life? Was it yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah. So I was always, as a kid growing up, I was always super inquisitive, and I was always the kid. I'm one of 5 children, and we're all quite close. There's 6 years between the youngest and eldest, and I'm pretty much the youngest boy. And I was always that inquisitive kid that wanted to know why, the reason why. So if I got the answer, then my rebuttal was always, but why? But why? And I was that seeking kid. And Mum always used to buy me those books, like 101 Facts and, all the scientific stuff. And I just absorbed that information as a kid, and always be hungry for the meaning of life. At a very young age, had an experience, I think it was when my ma passed away. I must have been around 7 or so. Of questioning the actual reality of life and death, like what happens when you die. And inadvertently, my parents thought they were doing the right thing, and because of the way that they were raised, they sort of rebelled against religion and orthodoxy and things like that. And so they thought the best way to advise me about life after death was to say that, well, nothing happens when you die. You're put in a box and you're buried, and worms eat your body, and that's it. And I was like, then what? No, that's it. I was like, for how long? Forever. How long's forever? Well, forever. And I'm like, so when do I see you guys again? No, you don't. Do I see anyone? No. And I, like, as that kid that was hungry and thirsty for the meaning and the why, that just affected me amazingly. And it gave me this really fear of death, so much so that then I would have trouble sleeping at night. And I'd run into my parents' room crying, and they'd be like, what's going on? What's going on? I'd be like, well, I don't want you to die.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to die. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want you to die. And, as you grow up, then I was probably 7 or 8. And then as you go up through school and that, you sort of learn to mask and repress that so that, people don't realize you're frightened. But that was probably a really strong energy that I'd always took through my life, was just like, holy shit, like I can't cope with that. Fast forward, that inquisitive part of me, as I went through my young adulthood, turned into like the desire for like material possessions and ambitions, and like climbing not so much the corporate ladder, but just that great Australian dream, the tick box, get the next thing, and always thinking like, if I had more success, or I had more money, or if I had a nicer house, or if I had a better car, that's where I would find meaning, and that's where I'd find my why. And it got to a point where I had achieved a lot of material success, and also what you would consider the Australian dream. But internally, I was just disconnected, and I wasn't happy, and I had the inability to even front that myself. So I would mask that feeling of disconnect between how I felt inside and my outer world with drinking, and and then I'd drink and do silly things and wake up the next day, and people would say, "Oh, this is what you did or said," and I wouldn't remember it. I'd black out and pass out, and just this sort of habitual process that went on for a few years after I'd had my 3 children. I had a pretty successful business, family, mortgage, cars, overseas holidays. Like, from the outer world looking in, there was no reason for me to be unhappy. So I would just, I would like to drink a lot just to sort of avoid that question. And that got me until around the end of 2014, where I decided, okay, I need to confront this alcohol problem because it's not helping, it's masking.
Yeah.
So I decided in 2015, no alcohol for the year. At the beginning of that year, actually towards the end of the last year, a friend had sent me a 9/11 conspiracy video, and I stopped drinking alcohol, but I was smoking a little bit of weed from time to time and micro dosing. And I turned off the TV and I jumped onto the YouTube and I started looking up 9/11 conspiracy videos, which led me down rabbit holes. And just then I got to this point where I remember thinking, shit, man, there's enough evidence there. You know, it doesn't matter which theory you align to go, something's not right here. And again, that younger child activation of the why kicked in. And that's what I was like after, like, what's the why? Why would they do this? Why would that be orchestrated? And why would we be told it's one thing and there's evidence to suggest that it wasn't, you know, like for those listening, just go and look up Building 7. What happened there? Like, can you explain that? My plane hit Building 7, yet it collapsed at free fall. Anyway, I won't go into that. But again, this activated this part of me that I'd lost for quite some time, which was the why. Why is this? Why would they do this? Why would they do this? And it just led me to every conspiracy, right, rabbit hole. It was just like going through the tunnels of everything, right, taking the red pill and going down Alice's hole. And through that process, I come up
taking the red pill and going down Alice's hole. Sorry, I went somewhere else then.
Keep it clean. And through that process, I discovered someone talking about astrology and astrotheology online, which is astrology and religion. And I was raised atheist. You know, I didn't have a belief in any religious or God or anything like that. It was a pretty scientific perspective on reality, you know, like went along with that mainstream narrative. But then this guy I discovered online, Santos Bonacci, an Australian guy, he started putting videos up about astrotheology, and it just resonated with me. His delivery style and the way he would describe, and he also described our reality from that perspective as well. And he basically was showing you how religions, they're telling the story of the movement of the stars through their mythology. And it's not supposed to be taken literal, it's literary. And it was just like, whoa, hang on. So I just then, at that point, I knew I was a Virgo and I had some Virgo traits. But other than that, I really didn't look much into astrology. And we get what the crappy shit in the magazines, the horoscopes and paper. And it's easy to dismiss because it's non-specific, it's non-generic and very generic. And so I looked into it more and I found somewhere online where you could cast a birth chart. I didn't even know what that was. And then it had this basic interpretation on that. And I must have spent about a month reading my own birth chart and was just not the interpretation, but someone else's generic version of what that would be. And even that alone for me, where it was the why, you know, the why, I sort of found that. And I was like, finally, I have some understanding behind the why now for me. Why I am the way I am, why I like the way I do, why I take action the way I take action, why my goals have been the way, why I always felt like I was my own worst critic. You know, there were some astrological significations of that. And it just blew my mind right open. At the time, my ex-wife, which was my wife at the time, she was studying psychology through a university. And she was coming to profound insights into the human psyche, as you can imagine. And so was I.
Yeah.
I was doing it in internet scholarship.
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
But I was coming to the same profound insight into the human psyche and characteristics and archetypes and those types of things by just looking into astrology. And it just, in a year where I was very clear-minded, I wasn't distracted by TV, I wasn't drinking at all. I lost 15 kilos that year. Like I was in good shape, mental shape, physical shape, and I was just like ferociously just devouring information. So when I got to that and it really satisfied a deep why for me, then I just set about trying to find out as much about it as I can. I found a tutor on the Gold Coast where I was living, who was a professional astrologer who tutored me in my foundations. And then I just set about reading books, watching podcasts, listening to documentaries, and just absorbing, doing the charts of my family and friends and looking at the traits and seeing them in their charts and then seeing them in their personality. And it just drove me. And fast forward from 2015 to 2018, my marriage ended. I ended up moving back to Melbourne to be close to my kids and co-parent with my ex-wife. And in 2019, I just quit my job and started professionally reading astrology for people. 2019 was a hard year. It was a slog. And I just sort of kept at it and persisted. And I was supported by Heidi and I just kept going. And then, yeah, this year with the collapse of the Matrix, which we're watching by our very eyes, even though it might not feel like that at some point, there's just been this surge of people that where they had put meaning in their life, it's no longer there. They're not getting the same source of, satisfaction from external things. And they're starting to question the very nature of what they're doing, how is this reality working? And it's this groundswell of people that have been coming to me and people like me to sort of look alternatively. Like I had a pest control business for 20 years, and I had a good staff member, Michael. He was like my protege, great bloke. And I think yesterday he sent me a thing, and he's been prying and asking the right type of questions. Yesterday he said, man, I've been getting into numerology. Can you put me in the direction of a good numerology book? So I'm like, yeah, man, this is a great book, and here's a good podcast. And like, oh man, I don't know what it is. I feel like, he goes, you know, that Truman Show, that movie, The Truman Show, it feels like this is what we're living in. I'm like, I said, Michael, keep digging. You're on the right track, mate.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, it's pretty profound when you begin to, like, I used to look in the horoscopes and in the newspapers, or that, like, mum would have a new idea or something at home. You go, oh, bloody horoscopes, astrology. That's such a woo woo thing. And then when I came and had the reading with you, I'm like, holy shit! Like, this is literally like laying out what I have been. Like, I was a why kid like you. Like, I'd ask my mum. My mum would crack the shits all the time because I was like, why this, why that, why this, why that. Why are we going this way when we could go that way? Because, like, that way is quicker. Why don't we do this way, mum? Like this. And I was always just, and it's the same thing. Like, when you read the things out, I'm just going, you know, like, and like, that's why the day that I even had the reading with you, I had nothing to ask, because you're literally telling me everything I already knew.
Yeah.
And like, just like that guy that you used to work with, it is a thing. I think it's also a daunting thing. Like, if you're someone who doesn't know, and you don't want to admit that you don't know something new, and it's daunting then to know whether you go in and find out what is actually happening and looking behind. And like, that's really cool that he's actually coming to you now to go down. Like, and numerology in itself it's pretty mind blowing, and especially in astrology as well. Like, you like, anybody out listening, either look Luke up and get a reading, because it does blow your mind. And especially people who have kind of been on the woo-woo side of the fence, then just give it a go and see what it's like. I think, like, you'd be pleasantly surprised, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's and those things, like, you know, there's the tarot, and there's numerology, and there's astrology, and there's all sorts of spiritual sort of practices and techniques, and all of these mystery schools and occult and esoteric knowledge and things. And something will resonate, you know, and it might not be astrology for you, but it'll be something that gives you your why. And it's like, oh wow, there's meaning here, you know, there's some understanding that for a very, very, very long time in our ancient past, it was part of our culture. It's only really been obscured in modern times, because what I believe firmly is because of its power to re-empower each individual person to really know who they are, what they are, why they are, and when they are. And this construct that we live in is disempowering us to keep us into the consumer mindset, to keep putting our value in external things, to keep, like, staying on that hamster wheel. We're like little batteries, and we are energetically charging up their reality. What astrology does is it enables you to empower yourself and no longer, you know, be dependent on their construct, their matrix, that system. You can sort of be like, I know who I am now. I know what I am and where I am and what I'm doing and what my soul's journey is here, what my purpose is, and I'm working towards that. And it enables you this ability to sort of just break free and individuate yourself and liberate yourself in that process. And that's a big part of, like, where we're transitioning as a collective, is to this place of individuation. It's not the matrix is trying to make us all the same, you know, and dumb us down and keep us all at one level. And it's not like level is in hierarchy. It's all that we are unique individual souls, but we need to work collectively together. Whereas what I see they're trying to do is just trying to take away the individuation
Yeah.
process.
It's taking away the thinking, and just the thinking mind just disappears, and you're not again you're not seated in that being. You're just literally a doing person. You're just going, I'm doing this today, I'm doing this today, so and so told me I had to do this, and I'm going to do it that way, rather than I'm going to do it my own way. And yeah, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, and it's also being okay with people not being okay with your way, and being okay with people doing it their way. And that when you really know thyself, which is, you know, an axiom, a Hermetic axiom is know thyself. And when you know thyself, you don't really, you're cool with other people not getting you. You're cool with other people doing their thing, doing it their way. You're like, it's cool. This is my way. Yeah, I am the creator of my reality, and I can choose the way in which I'm going to front up and express my beingness and my self-expression in this world. And it's not dependent on you accepting it, liking it, validating it. It's just, hey, that's cool, man. I'm cool with people loving it. I'm cool with people hating it, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, it's even like you go back into the 60s, it was like that. They were all about freedom of expression and stuff like that. That was like and was it the age of the age of Aquarius? That age of
So the song,
Aquarius.
Yeah, we're in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The key part to that song is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. So it's not, the dawning is like, you know, when you go to dawn, the sun hasn't come up yet, but the light's there.
Yeah.
This is what that song represents, is that we aren't quite in the age of Aquarius, but the dawning of it is happening, and that is enough to start waking up, because what happens at dawn, the sun comes up and you wake up. And we've been in the age of Pisces, and that's the dream realm, and that's separation of self from our true self, where we are lost at sea, where the two fish swimming in different directions, and our reality is constructed by our belief system. And what's happened is this construct gives us the information. They control the information we receive, and that out of that information we formulate our beliefs, right? And then out of the beliefs our reality is created. So he that controls the information controls the beliefs, controls the reality. And it's like the biggest thing that anyone can do if they want to awaken is question their beliefs, because the beliefs is what's creating your reality. And if you don't like your reality and you want to change it, you have to have the ability to question everything you believe. And for me, what enabled me to do that was conspiracy. And that was the catalyst for me. It was the catalyst. The 9/11 conspiracy video was enough for me to go, something ain't right. And I questioned, and then I was able to eventually question everything, even the shape of the earth that we live in on, which is a very polarizing topic.
Yeah, that's a very polarizing.
And again, I'm cool with people not being cool with me. I don't give a shit.
And that's the thing. Like I remember sitting around on a bender with mates, watching those YouTube videos about 9/11, and that's one of the first. That was when I first started kind of wormholing as well. And you just watch, and we just sit there and be like, whoa, that's fucked up. And you ask, and then you begin to ask questions, and like, okay, cool. Like, even if people are making this shit up, like, there's other people out there asking these questions, and whether they're right or wrong, I can listen to it and make this my own discernment. And you listen to the for and against as well. And that's the thing, is like, where we're at the moment, there's people just listening to one thing, and that is it. And there's other people, one thing, this is it, but not actually listening to it and going, yeah, well, that's got a valid point. This has got a valid point. Let's find where that middle is. And it's actually weighing it up, so you're not so much watching the same shit all the time. Because that's the thing, is like, it's easy just to go down that hole and go, fuck, like, I'm now just all this about this, and this is it, and you've got to listen to me, otherwise the world is going to die. But like, if you begin to kind of go, okay, cool, like, listen to that, that's a bit of bullshit over there, over on the right, let's listen to some left, and go, oh, they're full of shit over there as well, let's find what is actually really going on. And then you own it. Like, that's your belief system. Then you, like, when you own something, that is when you're actually going to feel good about yourself, when you're actually going to go, fuck yeah, like, I've actually know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing, and I actually believe in what I am doing, rather than, or who I'm being, rather than who I'm being told to be.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
We've got to be mindful. Not we still also, what I believe is, we still also have to be able to question our beliefs. So even if
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
new information and we have a new perspective, and now we have that belief, and this is our knowledge, and I'm owning it, you still have to hold space for that belief to be challenged. Otherwise, you back into that place again where you stay rigid and stuck. And it's easy to, what we do tend to do as well is, when we do have this belief, we tend to seek information that validates it. You know, so
And, yeah, and it becomes that vortex. It's like,
yeah. And then that is the spiraling sort of hole. And I do a lot of that with clients that are sort of on the conspiracy side, but awakening, but they can get stuck in those little vortex holes, you know, sort of bring them out. And one of my favorite sayings that I coined is, if conspiracy doesn't lead you to spirituality, then they're doing it wrong, you know, because that's the whole point of conspiracy, is to crack your conditioning and your belief system enough for you to open up to the possibility that you don't know what the fuck is going on. And now then I can go and seek for myself. And it's not like we all have to believe the same thing, but you have to find what it is for you that resonates, and your meaning to life, right? And it can be different to everyone. And when you get into that place where you're cool with, hey, I have my meaning, and I'm okay with you not having the same, and I'm okay with yours one conflicting mine, whatever, that's fine. I don't need to be hell-bent now and making you believe what I believe. I can point the way, and I can ask questions, and I can offer advice if you ask, but at the same time, I can also let you go and say, that's cool, that's what you want to believe. And I've had an experience with that recently with a long-time friend on social media, with his perspective with what's going on. And I've encouraged him to question a few different things, but then I meet the wall, and it's like, that's cool, man, that's cool, you know, and just the letting go of that, and be like, okay, it's not my responsibility to make you believe what I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been in that same boat, and that's exactly, you end up burning, you can burn yourself out, and you end up, your own fire just gets so drained from trying to fight your fire with their fire with your fire. It's like, well, look, like I see you for what your views, and that's the thing. I think, like, when you listen, you go, cool, like, I'm not going to change your mind, so there's no use. Like, and that's the same thing with, like, these are my views. Allow them to be my views, and I'm not going to try and tell you to come over to here if you don't want to. Like, if you don't want to come over here, don't come over here. So I'm happy here. You're happy there. Okay, let's keep doing it. You know, but yeah, I think it's a pretty special thing once you start to kind of awaken, and whatever journey you've kind of been on, and however you've come through from it, when you begin to ask those why questions, that is definitely where your magic lies, and that's where you begin to see, like, Alice going down the hole, and you see the Mad Hatter, and you see everything for what it is, and yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. It changes your perspective on reality. And you know, if you don't like the reality that you see, change the way you see it. Yet we are just constantly conditioned to only see it from a certain perspective. And once you break your conditioning and you awaken, and there are varying stages of awakening, and I don't think we ultimately ever fully awaken until we enlighten ourselves, and then we continue to awaken to the next level of you know, reality, or whatever that idea is. But once you start to break that conditioning and awaken, then you realize, I have the power to choose the way I see this reality. That is the ultimate power. And it doesn't matter then the set of circumstances you're faced with. You are the creator of your reality. So I'm going to face it in this way. And no one then is at fault or responsible for your reality anymore. You know,
Absolutely.
and we're much more then, from a grounded place, we're much more effectual in actually changing the collective reality and helping change that collective reality.
Yeah, because you essentially, you're leading with light rather than leading with darkness. If you're this dark person just walking around, and, like, if you can begin to lead with light and lead by example, then more people are probably going to be drawn towards your vibration, because you're operating at a higher vibration rather than this low, dense vibration that people can, like, sense what you're putting out. And if you got that dense, angered energy or whatever is happening, or unsure energy, it's kind of like that timid pull away, like I don't know about this person. And I think it's very empowering, like when for people who are unsure about themselves, is actually beginning to unravel that other side, those asking those why questions, and yeah, definitely getting into the deeper meaning of who you are is the key to unlocking it. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, for me, it was always like, what are we doing here? I remember even as a kid thinking like, where am I? What am I doing here? What is the point of all this? You're watching people busy like ants doing everything around and just thinking, why are we all doing what we're doing? Who made this game up? Who said these are the rules, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing, especially when you, like the other day I was having a surf and I was sitting in the surf and I literally just like, what the fuck, where am I? Like what am I doing? And like I was actually like, people are going to think people who might be listening to this, they're going to think I'm a fucking gone. But I just transcended where I was. Like I was water and just bobbing in the water, and I'm like, and then I just like, where the fuck did I just go for? Like I don't know how long I was gone for, but I literally just became one with everything. And that is just once you realize that we are the chair that we're sitting on, where the leaves behind you, on my bathroom door, I'm the surfboard that I'm sitting on the water that I'm sitting in. That is essentially, once you've found that, you're like, fuck, I don't need anything else. Yeah.
And that's, I think, too, what the system fears the most, because the system is designed on us consuming and giving our energy and wealth to the system for our value in things, right? And once you realize that you are everything, then you need fucking nothing.
So everything and nothing. That's the thing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, you're like, cool, those things that we were grasping for, that we needed, was to fulfill us in some way. But when you realize that you are everything, then your cup is always full. Like, man, and you spend time like you that had that moment in the surf where you just dissolve into the nothing and the everything. And like now in the backyard, it's like, wow, man, what a beautiful day, and the sun shining through the trees and the birds. And it's just like you have that ability to take that in. And we miss that because we're busy all the time and we're plugged in and we're needing to know what's the next thing and where is it and who's doing what. And we're in this state of like, and we got to stop and smell the roses and be like, shit, man, like I'm in a body. That's weird.
It is. Yeah. And especially like when you become to take ownership, like a lot of the work I've been doing lately, especially with their classes and stuff online, is like really having people become more aware of who they are and how they occupy this big sack of skin and bones. Because like we walk around so often and not even realize what foot we're putting in front of the other, or there's a creak in our neck and it's been there for the last 7 months and I haven't really dealt with it, and it's just starting to get worse and worse. It's like having that ownership of this vessel that you've been put on earth to do whatever your dharma has put you on this planet to do, and whatever the soul's journey is. And then once you realize that, you go, cool, like, I don't need fucking anything. Like if I got a house over, a roof over my head and some clothes on my back, that's me. I'm done. Give me a surfboard and I'm a happy man, And I think that's where once for a lot of people, it's getting to that point of really realizing that it's like, what is this? What is underneath this skin that I inhabit, and owning it and owning who you are and knowing deep down. It's like, and then like that's Emma. Quite often she says to me, she's like, I'm just sitting there and I'll be like staring at the wall and I'll become the wall. And she goes, where'd you go? And I'm like, I was just looking at the wall. Like, and I just literally I was like there in the wall. And it's only really just recently that I've been really realizing it's like, maybe I've just been transcending wherever I go. Just literally I'm just off the planet. But
I can remember as a kid in classrooms that I often would frequently encompass everything in the room all at once and just have moments where my awareness was everything. And I remember this, it was probably grades would have been grade 5, 6, and 7 when I would be in this classroom environment and just be like those moments where you just go into everything, and then you'd sort of just come back, either something happened or the teacher calling your name or whatever, and you'd just be like, oh, that's right. And it was almost like everything become huge, like everything massive,
Yeah.
sort of sitting there just in this zone of, and then as a kid, it's like, oh, you're daydreaming or you don't know what you're doing. But like we have these, and kids are way more able to go into those states because they have less conditioning.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have memories of that sort of thing, as a kid, even going into that state.
I can liken that, like obviously as a kid, but I can liken that to having some mushrooms.
Yeah.
And if you've ever had mushrooms, and the same thing is like everything just becomes like you're eating stars from the sky, and like like there was one episode that I had where I was a puppet and I was playing the stars like pop, pop, pop.
Yeah.
But it was like that's the sort of thing, you become part of the energy and everything around you. And then if you can do, and you're doing, and if you can access that with eyes open, untapped and
and you can be conscious in that state. Yeah,
like,
it's a powerful thing.
it's like there's I don't know if you watch Gaia. There's a documentary on there. There's a Krishna Das documentary, and I know you do play some kirtan and stuff like that. And anyone listening at home, Krishna Das is like the dude who is kirtan in the West, essentially. Like he's the rock star that you could potentially go into any yoga class and there'll be a Krishna Das song at some stage. But he talks about, he met Ram Das, and Ram introduced him to I think it was acid or LSD, and they were both same, and they he did this, and he kept on trying to chase this LSD high. And then it wasn't until he sat with Ram and goes, you've got it all before you. You don't need to keep chasing it with this drug. It's right there inside you. And then he's like, oh shit. And then realized, like, once he started accessing this, that that he didn't need to go to the drugs, and he didn't need to go to the alcohol to find his path. And through Bhakti was where he was getting it. Like, it was through that music that he was getting that release, and he was disappearing into the notes, into the vibrations. And I know I'm going pretty spiritual and woo-woo here for a lot of people who might be listening, but I don't care. It's when you realize that path, that access to those other levels, and I'm now assuming that you've been in or getting to that point, and you're a musician, and I'm sure you probably even find that flow and that accessing those different areas that you just that's what takes you away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think recreational drugs are a definite benefit to a society, and certain ones in particular, and I think that's largely the reason why they're illegal, and also they're ostracized by our society. They don't want you sampling reality beyond the physical. So they've got their place, and as responsible, conscious leaders, we need to be able to allow people to experience those in safe settings. I'm all for that. But they are for those that need to sample. If you want to be able to reside, then you need to have some sort of dedicated spiritual practice that enables you to not need those things. So I do see that there is a need for them. I've partaken in pretty much everything except heroin. And I think the key to that is, though, that we don't become reliant upon them.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's a structured, routine, disciplined approach to spirituality that will bear the most fruit.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think that's when if you're having to become reliant, and even what I was kind of getting to there was, you might have dabbled, and then you realize I don't actually need to. I'm happy where I am without it. Like I don't need to, especially when you start to realize that you're chasing something. And it's the same thing like I was when before I had my awakening, I was chasing the next hit because that was then dampening the feelings that I had to deal with, and or the stress and anxiety and the depression that I was dealing with. So I'd just go out and get high again, and then you realize, okay, I don't need that. That's the stuff. That stuff is I'm just chasing something, rather than why don't I just come out of that state and chase it without, or not chase it, just find it, and then know how to access it without chasing something. Is okay, cool. I can access this state through meditation. I can access it through like bhakti, mantra, and then you then realize, okay, cool. Like I've unlocked what I need to, where I need to go, and I know how to get there. And then I think that's like you say. You keep saying it's like the matrix and the person in charge, whether it's one or two people up in the control room, they like once you start to free think and you become free for thinking for yourself, there's some pretty potent information that you can unlock within your own mind and everything else that's out there.
Yeah, every answer is within, every single one. It's just the practices that we do that can put us in the state for us to be able to access them. Yeah, and it's going to be different for everyone as well.
Yeah.
For me, it was, and I've experienced this through meditation as well as through certain drugs. The embodiment of it in waking life. And it's when you have a sense of that feeling and that state that you can get into, then it's just the conscious embodiment of that, and those practices like yoga and meditation and bhakti and all those things, they help you. They're like these techniques to get there. And ultimately you want to be able to just, they're called practices because you to get good at something, you got to practice, but eventually you're that good at it, you don't need to practice anymore because you can just do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But the key is the practice. You got to have a practice to start.
You're not just, unless you're Yogananda or someone like that, and who's just born enlightened. There is a practice for most people who have that, to find that enlightened state.
And the thing is too, once we as adults start to embody this as a collective more and more, we will then have the ability to alter the way in which we raise children and educate them to remain in their childlike state more frequently and not need them to conform to anyone else's idea or expectation of how they should be, which is where a lot of the issues come in, and have kids freely just be in that state. And we can develop their senses to be able to perceive the non-physical realm, instead of putting them into like pretty much a concentration camp for 13 years where they're educated on repetition and left brain thinking and logical reasoning and answers and yes and no and I'm correct and I've got an A sort of thing.
Yeah.
We can put them in tap with the other part of reality. And we undoubtedly we will get there. I have 100% faith. We're just being lost. We've been lost as a collective. We've been in the dark ages. Consciousness has been in dark ages and not knowing why we're here or what we are. But now we're starting to more and more collectively understand that and work towards that. And I think that's what will drive the fundamental shift and change collectively, is that we just keep pushing in that direction. And it doesn't matter what the matrix decides to do, that ultimately it's us that frees ourselves.
I agree. And I think that's like, even with the censoring and stuff that's happening online, and people kind of getting like pissed off and stuff about the Facebook. Like I've removed myself from Facebook. I wasn't getting information from there anymore. Like I was just getting shit, and I wasn't, I'm pretty close to removing myself from Instagram as well. Cause like you can't get truthful stuff there unless you like, or you can, but like, it's getting removed. And so there's You can go to websites, you can go to different places, like a decent, I'm not going to say Google search because I don't use Google anymore. For those of you out there who are still using Google, get off Google. They track everything that you're using, and check out maybe a Brave browser, or if you want to go deeper, Tor is another one. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I would. And anyway, but yeah, guys, like, listen, these little changes that you could potentially begin to make to then start to free yourself from the monotony of what is actually happening out there. That's one thing that I really want to try and get across from today's podcast, is just making small changes in your life. The removing yourself from certain situations where you're continually getting a backlash of people, like, and you're having to defend your position, like own your position. Like Luke said, is like you can allow that person to tell you what they want, but then go, okay, I see your point of view, I honor that, but this is my point of view, and move forward. Because that's, at the end of the day, it becomes draining, especially if you're having to defend your position to 7 or 8 different conversations. And then just, yeah, like I with the Google and stuff like that, is I listened to a podcast the other day. Paul Check, he's one of my teachers, and he's this 67-year-old woke dude who's like sat with multiple different shamans and done all this other spiritual work. And he has he, on his podcast, they were outlining a bunch of different stuff that you could do just to untap from the source of the information that is being fed to people, and actually then becoming more inquisitive. And one thing they mentioned was like getting off Google, removing yourself from those people like the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and who are dictating what goes where, switching off, like you said, switching off the television, and being inquisitive into the why on what you actually really feel. I think that's like some really big takeaways for today. Anyway, that's for sure. Anything you want to add?
Get your chart done.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's the other thing. Get in contact with Luke to get your chart done, because when you actually then get in touch with where you sit in the astrological chart and how your chart reads for you, whether you believe it or not, there's going to be something that probably will resonate with you, and you're going to go, okay, cool, like that. You can then start to look into the different areas of the chart that Luke will run you through, that essentially, okay, cool, like he's mentioned something here. Oh shit, that actually makes sense. And that's one really big thing that I really took away from it, is like, mentioned a couple of different of the houses, and I just went away and looked at them because I wanted to be the Y guy, and I was like, oh yep, that's it. And I was, so get your chart done. Anything else you would want to add in there, mate, for people that
TV off, turn the TV off, drink plenty of water.
Yes.
Don't be hard on yourself. Question your beliefs. Be curious again with reality. Be curious. We've forgotten that curiosity of just like searching and seeking and not needing to find anything anyway. Sometimes just curiosity, and that ability to just take in information and not necessarily be like, we've got to be careful, because the ego likes to inflate itself with knowledge and information, and then it becomes this parrot that just wants to speak it out at people and facts and things like that. So you've got to be careful not to feed it too much information. Meditation, there's 8 billion people on earth, and there's 8 billion different ways to meditate. Find a way that works for you. If you're one of those people that's tried it and it doesn't work, it's because you're doing it wrong. You haven't found your way to do it, and it's going to be different for everyone. But what it needs is exploration and curiosity, and try different things. And all of a sudden you'll get a meditation practice, and you'll be like, wow, this really resonates. I can do this. For me personally, it was a very structured, very disciplined, set routine, ritual, meditation, breath work, visualization that I would do at 5 a.m. every morning. I did it for a year solid to just get me into that place.
Like you said, it's practice. It's still a practice. You're not going to be good at it the first time you do it. It's like repetitions in the gym. You're not going to be able to do 10 pull-ups in the gym in the first session you ever drop, unless you're an absolute freak. It's the same thing. You're not going to get that complete.
It's compound interest. So it's a cumulative effect. And you can't just do it once and be like, oh, I didn't feel anything.
Mm.
You do it once every day for a year, and I guarantee you, you're going to be living a completely different life.
And I think also I've discovered with people, obviously teaching meditation to them, is the eyes open experience. Or if you are meditating eyes open, but the experience outside of the meditation, like you might be someone who blows up at someone in traffic, but normally now you just kind of just cruise along and someone cuts you off, you're like, there you go, it's your lane now, mate. And rather than just getting on the horn, and that's something to go, oh, actually meditation might actually be working. I may not be able to shut the voices and everything off going into my head, but you're not supposed to anyway. You just allow them to come and you keep bringing yourself back to whatever you practice you're doing. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of misconception also with their meditation practices, they want to quieten the mind, but it's not so much about quietening the mind, it's allowing the mind to have rest in between those pieces of noise.
Yeah, otherwise we get really hard on ourselves because we can't do it.
Yeah.
And then we're self-defeating behavior, and then we quit because it's too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that meditation, water, sun. Get some sun. Sun's amazing. Look at it. Your skin's like changed color in this last hour.
The sun is right on
Yeah, it's right on you.
It's right on me. It's beautiful.
You
don't get much sun in Melbourne, so when you do, you're like, come on, buddy. And that's one thing, like everyone's covered up and faces and covered up and everything, and it's like, you know what? An hour, apparently an hour a day or whatever, but get out in the sun. The sun's energy is healing energy.
Well, in Ayurvedic, they would say get out at the dawn and also at sunrise, sunset. So when the sun is at its lowest in the sky, that is probably the best time of the day to go out to get the best juice out of that beautiful, glorious, bright thing in the sky. So if you want to use your hour in Melbourne to go out and, or maybe if you're up early enough, you might be able to, oh no, you can't. It's 8 o'clock. You got to be out. I don't know. What's the curfew?
8 o'clock at night, you got to be indoors, and 5 o'clock in the morning, you can go back out again.
Oh, you can see sunrise and sunset then. That's
yes, sun. At the moment, we can see sunset, which is nice. And Heidi and I sun gaze a lot. Like we'll go to the beach just in that final sort of 30 minutes and just stare at the sun.
It's pretty
no
beautiful.
Sun, nothing. You know, they were always told as a kid, don't look at the sun. But at that hour of the day, when it's really close to the horizon, you can stare right at it. It doesn't hurt. It's actually good for you. And who knows whether they're going to continue this ridiculousness into daylight savings times. I hope not, because I like going to the beach at 9:30 at night and watching the sunset. It's one of my favourite things to do in Melbourne. But if it's curfew at 8 o'clock, I'll be like, nah.
That's enough for me, mate. I'm done, Dan.
That's it, man. I'm out. Give me the helicopter. What I said, I've got a couple of options. One is a helicopter. I got a rich mate up in Queensland. I'm like, mate, come and get the helicopter. And if not, I'm going to drive up to one of the border towns area and just start digging and just dig my way out like the Great Escape, mate. And I've already got a few people who are like, we're coming with shovels. So where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. There's a lot of bush up there that's not covered either. So you'd be pretty sweet up through that Alpine Way in summertime. Just go jogging across the border, I could imagine.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't need to. Hopefully enough people awaken and we can make some transitions to a sane society.
Yeah, I think hopefully sanity will prevail very soon, mate. And if not, hopefully a lot of people are listening to this podcast and they're taking something away from it. Thank you for your time today.
Excuse me, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers, bud.
Oh, wait. Where can people catch up? Where can people catch up to you?
Yeah, so unlike you, I am on social media and I don't use it to gather information, but I do use it to connect with community. That's great. It's a great tool for me. So I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm on Instagram a lot, and my name is Luke Balcke. I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And people can hit me up there. I've got a website, the same name, just .com. And you can go on there and book a session. I've got hour and a half or 2 hours, and it's all Zoom at the moment. So yeah, hit me up.
Thanks, mate. Awesome. I'm glad I got that one in. Thank you.
Good on you, mate. Thanks.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's show. If you like what you heard and want to get all the info, check out the show notes. While you're there, rate and review the show. And one last thing, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes. Until next time, my friends, continue to look out for each other and continue to lift each other up.